He was yelling and clawing at the ground, but the winged shoes kept dragging him towards the pit, and it didn't look like we could possibly get to him in time. What saved him were his hooves. The flying sneakers had always been a loose fit on him, and finally Grover hit a big rock, and the left shoe came up flying off. It sped into the darkness, down into the chasm. The right shoe kept tugging him along, but not as fast. Grover was able to slow himself down by grabbing onto a big rock and using it like an anchor. He was 10 feet from the edge of the pit when we caught him and hauled him back up the slope. The other winged shoe tugged itself off, circled around us angrily, and kicked our heads in protest before flying off into the chasm to join its twin. We collapsed, exhausted, on the obsidian gravel. My limbs felt like lead. Even my back seemed heavier, as if somebody had filled it with rocks. Grover was scratched up pretty bad. His hands were bleeding, and his eyes had gone to slit-pupiled goat style, the way they did whenever he was terrified. "I don't know how," he panted. "I didn't." "Wait," I said. "Listen." I heard something, a deep whisper in the darkness. Another few seconds, and Annabeth said, "Percy, this place—" "Shh," I told her. The sound was getting louder, a muttering, evil voice from far, far away, coming from the pit. Grover sat up. What's that noise?" Annabeth heard it too. Now, I could see it in her eyes. Tartarus. The entrance of Tartarus. I uncapped the riptide. The bronze sword expanded, gleaming in the darkness, and the evil voice seemed to falter just for a moment before resuming its chant. I could almost make out the words now, ancient words, older even than Greek, as if... "Magic," I said. "We have to get out of here," Annabeth said. Together we dragged Grover to his hooves and started backing up towards the tunnel. My legs wouldn't move fast enough. My backpack weighed me down. The voice got louder and angrier behind us, and we broke into a run. Not a moment too soon. A cold blast of wind pulled at our backs, and as if the entire pit was inhaling. For a terrifying moment, I lost ground. My feet slipped in the gravel. If we'd been any closer to the edge, we would have been sucked into the pit. We kept struggling forward and finally reached the top of the tunnel, where the cavern widened out into the fields of asphodel. The wind died. A wail of outrage echoed from deep in the tunnel, and something was not happy that we got away. "What was that?" Grover panted when he collapsed into the relative safety of a black poplar. "One of Hades' bats?" Annabeth and I looked at each other. I could tell she was nursing an idea, probably the same one she'd gotten from during the taxi ride to LA, but she was too scared to share. The thought was enough to terrify me. I capped my sword, put the pen back in my pocket. "Let's keep going," I told Grover. "Can you walk?" He swallowed. "Yeah, sure. I never liked those shoes anyway." He tried to sound brave about it, but he was trembling as badly as Annabeth and I were. Whatever was in that pit was nobody's pet. It was unspeakably old and powerful. Even Echidna hadn't given me that kind of feeling. I was almost relieved to turn my back on the tunnel and head down towards the palace of Hades. Almost. The Furies circled the parapets high in the gloom. The outer walls of the fortress glittered black, and the 2-story tall bronze gates stood wide open. Up close, I saw that the engravings on the gates were the scenes of death. Some were from modern times, an atomic bomb exploding over a city, a trench filled with gas masks wearing soldiers, a line of African famine victims waiting for empty bowls. But all of them looked as if they'd been etched into bronze thousands of years ago. I wondered if I was looking at prophecies that had come true. Inside the courtyard was the strangest garden I'd ever seen. Multicolored mushrooms, poisonous shrubs, and weird luminous plants grew without sunlight. Precious jewels made up for the lack of flowers. Piles of rubies as big as my fists, clumps of raw diamonds. Standing here and there were like frozen party guests were Medusa's garden statues, petrified children, satyrs and centaurs, all smiling grotesquely. Even in the center of the garden was an orchard of pomegranate trees, their orange blossoms neon bright in the darkness. "The Garden of Persephone," Annabeth said. "Keep walking." I understood why she wanted to move on. The tart smell of those pomegranates was almost overwhelming. I had a sudden desire to eat them, and then I remembered the story of Persephone. One bite of underworld food, and we would never be able to leave the underworld. I pulled Grover away to keep him from picking a juicy one. We walked up the steps of the palace between black columns, through black marbled portico, and into the house of Hades. The entry hall had polished bronze floor which seemed to boil in the reflected torchlight. There was no ceiling, just the cavern roof far above. I guess that they never had to worry about rain down here. Every side doorway was guarded by a skeleton in military gear. Some wore Greek armor and some British redcoats uniforms and some camouflage with the tattered American flag on their shoulders. They carried spears and muskets and M16s. None of them bothered us, but their hollowed eye sockets followed us as we walked down the hall towards the big set of doors on the opposite end. 2 U.S. Marine skeletons guarded the doors. They grinned down at us, rocket-propelled grenade launchers held across their chests. "You know," Grover mumbled, "I bet Hades doesn't have any trouble with door-to-door salesmen." My backpack weighed a ton now. I couldn't figure out why. I wanted to open it to check to see if I had somehow picked up a stray bowling ball, but this wasn't the time. "Well, guys," I said, "I suppose we should knock?" A hot wind blew down the corridor. The doors swung open and the guards stepped aside. "I guess this means entrez-vous," Annabeth said. The room inside looked like in my dreams, except this time the throne of Hades was occupied. He was the 3rd god I'd met, but the first one who really struck me as godlike. He was at least 10 feet tall, for one thing, and dressed in black silk robes and a crown of braided gold. His skin was albino white and his hair shoulder-length and jet black. He wasn't bulked up like Ares, but he radiated power. He lounged on his throne of fused human bones, looking lithe, graceful, and dangerous as a panther. I immediately felt like he should be giving all the orders. He knew more than I did. He should be my master. And then I told myself to snap out of it. Hades' aura was affecting me just like Ares' aura had. The Lord of the Dead resembled pictures I'd seen of Adolf Hitler or Napoleon, or the terrorist leaders who direct suicide bombers. Hades had the same intense eyes, the same kind of mesmerizing evil charisma. "You are brave to come here, son of Poseidon," he said in an oily voice. "After what you have done to me, very brave indeed. Or perhaps you are simply foolish." Numbness crept into my joints, tempting me to lie down and take a little nap at Hades' feet, curl up here and sleep forever. I fought the feeling and stepped forward. I knew what I had to say. "Lord and Uncle, I come with 2 requests." Hades raised his eyebrows, and then he sat forward in his throne. Shadowy faces appeared in the folds of his black robes, faces of torment, as if the garments were stitched by the trapped souls from the fields of punishment, trying to get out. The ADHD part of me wondered, off task, whether the rest of his clothes were made that way too. What a horrible thing! What horrible things would you have had to do in your life to get woven into Hades' underwear? "Only 2 requests?" Hades asked. "Arrogant child. As if you have not already taken enough. Speak then, it amuses me not to strike you dead yet." I swallowed. This was going about as well as I'd feared. I glanced at the empty, smaller throne next to Hades. It was shaped like a black flower, gilded with gold. I wished Queen Persephone were here. I recalled something in the myths about how she calmed her husband's moods. But it was summer, of course, and Persephone would be above in the world of light with her mother, the goddess of agriculture, Demeter. Her visits, not the tilt of the planet, created the seasons. Annabeth cleared her throat. Her finger prodded me in the back. "Lord Hades," I said. "Look, sir, there can't be a war among the gods. It would be really bad." "Really bad?" Grover added helpfully. "Return Zeus's master bolt to me," I said. "Please, sir, let me carry it to Olympus." Hades' eyes grew dangerously bright. "You dare keep up this pretense after what you have done?" I glanced back at my friends. They looked as confused as I was. Uncle?" I said. "You keep saying after what you've done. What exactly have I done?" The throne room shook with a tremor so strong that they probably felt it upstairs in Los Angeles. Debris fell down from the cavernous ceiling. Doors burst open along all of the walls and skeletal warriors marched in, hundreds of them from every time period and nation in the Western civilization. They lined the perimeter of the room, blocking the exits. Hades bellowed, "Do you think I want a war, godling?" I wanted to say, well, these guys don't look like Peaks activists. But I thought that might be a dangerous answer. "You are the Lord of the Dead," I said carefully. "A war would expand your kingdom, right?" A typical thing for my brother to say. "Do you think I need more subjects? Did you not see the sprawl of the asphodel fields? Well, have you any idea how much a kingdom has swollen in the past century alone? How many subdivisions I've had to open?" I opened my mouth to respond, but Hades was on a roll now. More security ghouls, he moaned. Traffic problems at the Judgment Pavilion. Double overtime for the staff. I used to be a rich god, Percy. I controlled all of the precious metals under the earth. But my expenses! Karen wants a pay raise, I blurted out, just remembering the fact. As soon as I said it, I'd wished I'd sewed up my mouth. Don't even get me started on Karen, Hades yelled. He's been impossible ever since he discovered Italian suits. Problems everywhere, and I've got to handle all of them personally. The commute time alone from the palace to the gates is enough to drive me insane. The dead just keep arriving. No, Godling, I do not need help getting more subjects. I did not ask for a war. But you took Zeus's master bolt. Lies! More rumbling. Hades rose from his throne, towering at the height of a football goalpost. Your father may fool Zeus, boy, but I am not so stupid. I see his plan. His plan? You were the thief in the winter solstice, he said. Your father thought to keep you his little secret. He directed you into the throne room on Olympus, and you took the master bolt and my helm of darkness. Had I not set my fury to discover your Yancey Academy, Poseidon might have succeeded in hiding his scheme to start a war. But now you have been forced into the open. You have been exposed as Poseidon's thief, and I will have my helm back. But, Annabeth spoke. I could tell her mind was a million miles an hour. Lord Hades, your helm of darkness is missing too? Do not play innocent with me, girl. You and the satyr have been helping this hero, coming here to threaten me in Poseidon's name, no doubt, to bring me an ultimatum. Does Poseidon think I can be blackmailed into supporting him? No, I said. Poseidon didn't. I didn't. I have said nothing of the helm's disappearance, Hades snarled, because I have no illusions that anyone on Olympus would offer me the slightest justice, the slightest help. I can ill afford for the world to get out for word to get out that my most powerful weapon of fear is missing. So I've searched for you myself, and when it was clear that you were coming to me to deliver your threat, I did not try to stop you. You didn't try to stop us, but return my helm now, or I will stop death, Hades threatened. This is my counter-proposal. I will open the earth and have the dead pour back into the world. I will make your lands a nightmare, and you, Percy Jackson, your skeleton will lead out my army of Hades. The skeletal soldiers all took one step forward, making their weapons ready. At that point, I probably should have been terrified. The strange thing was, I felt offended. Nothing gets me angrier than being accused of something I did not do. I've had a lot of experience with that. You're as bad as Zeus, I said. You think I stole something from you? That's why you sent the Furies after me? Of course, Hades said. And the other monsters? Hades curled his lips. I had nothing to do with them. I wanted no quick death for you. I wanted you brought to me alive so that you might face every torture in the field of punishment. Why do you think I let you enter my kingdom so easily? Easily? Return my property! But I don't have your helm. I came for the Master Bolt, which you already possess, Hades shouted. You came here with it, you little fool, thinking that you could threaten me. But I didn't. Open up your backpack then. A horrible feeling struck me. The weight in my backpack, like a bowling ball. It couldn't be. I flung it off my shoulder and unzipped it. Inside was a 2-foot-long metal cylinder, spiked at both ends, humming with energy. Percy? Annabeth said. How? I don't know. I don't understand. Your heroes are always the same, Hades said. Your pride makes you foolish, thinking you can bring such a weapon before me. I did not ask for Zeus's master bolt, but since it is here, you will yield it to me. I am sure it will make an excellent bargaining tool. And now, my helm, where is it? I was speechless. I had no helm. I had no idea how the master bolt had gotten into my backpack. I wanted to thank Hades. I wanted to think Hades was pulling some kind of trick. Hades was a bad guy, but suddenly the world turned sideways. I realized I'd been played by Zeus. I'd been played with. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades had been set at each other's throats by someone else. The Master Bolt had been in my backpack, and I'd gotten the backpack from... Lord Hades, wait, I said. This is all a mistake. A mistake? Hades roared. The skeletons aimed their weapons. From high above, there was a fluttering leathery wings, and the 3 Furies swooped down to perch on the back of their master's throne. The one with Mrs. Dodd's face grinned at me eagerly and flicked her whip. There's no mistake, Hades said. I know why you have come. I know the real reason you have brought the bolt, and you came to bargain for her. Hades loosed a ball of fire from his palms. It exploded on the step in front of me, and there was my mother, frozen in a shower of gold, just as she was at the moment when the Minotaur had begun to squeeze her to death. I couldn't speak. I reached out to touch her, but the light was hot as a bonfire. Yes, Hades said with satisfaction, I took her. I knew, Percy Jackson, that you would come to bargain with me eventually. Return my helm, and perhaps I will let her go. She's not dead, you know, not yet, but if you displease me, that will change. I thought about about the pearls in my pockets. Maybe they could get me out of this, if I could just get my mom free. Ah, the pearls, Hades said, my blood frozen. Yes, my brother and his little tricks. Bring them forth, Percy Jackson. My hands moved against my will, and I brought out the pearls. Only 3, Hades said. What a shame. You do realize each only protects one single person. Try to take your mother then, little godling. And which of your friends will you leave behind to spend eternity with me? Choose now. Go on. Or give me the backpack and accept my terms. I looked at Annabeth and Grover. Their faces were grim. We were tricked, I told them. Set up. Yes, but why? Annabeth said. And the voice in the pit. I don't know yet, I said, but I intend to ask. Decide, boy! Hades yelled. Percy, Grover put his hand on my shoulder. You can't give him the bolt. I know that. Leave me here, he said. Use the 3 pearls on your mom. No, I'm a satyr, Grover said. We don't have a soul like humans do. He can't torture me until I die. He can torture me until I die, but he won't get me forever. I'll just be reincarnated as a flower or something. It's the best way. No, Annabeth drew her bronze knife. You two go on. Grover, you have to protect Percy. You have to get your searcher's license and search for the quest for Pan. Get his mom and get out of here. I'll cover you. I plan to go down fighting. No way, Grover said. I'll stay behind. Think again, goat boy, Annabeth said. Stop it, both of you. I felt like my heart was being ripped in two. They had both been with me through so much. I remember Grover dive-bombing Medusa in the statue garden and Annabeth saving us from Cerberus. We survived Euphrates Waterland ride and St. Louis Arch and the Lotus Casino. I'd spent thousands of miles worried that I'd be betrayed by a friend, but these friends would never do that. They had done nothing but save me over and over again, and now they wanted to sacrifice their lives for my mom? I know what to do, I said. Take these. I handed them each a pearl. Annabeth said, but Percy. I turned and faced my mother. I desperately wanted to sacrifice myself and use the last pearl on her, but I knew what she would say. She would never allow it. I had to get the bolt back to Olympus and tell Zeus the truth. I had to stop the war. She would never forgive me if I saved her instead. I thought about the prophecy made on Half-Blood Hill, what seemed like 1,000,000 years ago. You will fail to save what matters the most in the end. I'm sorry, I told her. I'll be back. I'll find a way. The smug look on Hades' face faded, and he said, Godling? I'll find your helm, Uncle, I told him. I'll return it. Remember about Karen's pay raise. Do not defy me! And it wouldn't hurt to play with Cerberus once in a while. He does like red rubber balls. Percy Jackson, you will not! I shouted. Now, guys! We smashed the pearls at our feet. For a scary moment, nothing happened, and Hades yelled, Destroy them! The army of skeletons rushed forwards, swords out, guns clicking in full automatic. The Furies lunged. Their whips burst into flames. As the skeletons opened fire, the pearl fragments at my feet exploded in a burst of green light and a gust of fresh sea wind. I was encased in a milky white sphere, which started to float off the ground. Annabeth and Grover were right behind me. Spears and bullets sparked harmlessly off the pearl bubbles as we floated up. Hades yelled in such a rage, the entire fortress shook, and I knew it was not going to be a peaceful night in L.A. Look up! Grover yelled. We're going to crash! And sure enough, the long spikes in the ceiling, which I figured would pop our bubbles and skewer us. How do I control this thing? Annabeth shouted. I don't know. I don't think we can, I shouted back. We screamed as the bubbles slammed into the ceiling, and then darkness. Were we dead? No. I could feel the racing sensation. We were going up, right through solid rock, as easily as an air bubble in the water. That was the power of pearls, I realized. What belongs to the sea will always return to the sea. For a moment, I couldn't see anything until the smooth walls of my spheres, and then the pearl broke through the ocean floor. The other two milky spheres, Annabeth and Grover, kept pace with me as we soared towards the water, and then, kerblam! We exploded on the surface, in the middle of the Santa Monica Bay, knocking a surfer off of his board with an indignation. Dude! I grabbed Grover and hauled him over to the life buoy. I caught Annabeth and dragged her over too. A curious shark was circling us, a great white that was about 11 feet long. I said, Beat it! The shark turned and raced away. The surfer screamed something about bad mushrooms and paddled away as fast as he could. Somehow, I knew what time it was. It was early morning, June 21st, the day of the summer solstice. In the distance, Los Angeles was on fire, plumes of smoke rising from neighborhoods all over the city. There had been an earthquake, all right, and it was all Hades' fault. He was probably sending an army of dead after me right now, but at the moment, Underworld wasn't my biggest problem. I had to get to shore. I had to get Zeus's thunderbolt back to Olympus. Most of all, I had to have a serious conversation with the god who tricked me.